You're listening to Soundside. I'm Libby Denkman. Every Monday on Soundside, we catch you up on the top stories that are fascinating right now and what they say about the Pacific Northwest. We call it Front Page. And we got a rookie in the studio, everybody. A very brand new, so hopefully he remembers how to use this microphone. Dave Ross, radio legend, here with me, 47 years in the industry. Dave, my former boss. This is a seminal moment for me to welcome you to Front Page and Soundside. Yes, it is. Thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. The radio studio is totally intimidating. These microphones are so big. And I know that you're smart and you've got all sorts of impossible questions to ask. But go ahead. Fire away.
It's fabulous to have you here. We're going to talk a little bit later in Front Page about how you've been doing about a year into retirement. But first, our top story. I want to get to Washington floods, these historic floods that we've been seeing over the past couple of weeks and their aftermath. And we know that more rain is expected this week in western Washington, but the latest atmospheric river seems to be mostly hitting northern California. So we're getting a bit of a reprieve. What we're left with is a lot of damaged roads, a lot of damaged infrastructure, an as yet untold number of people trying to dig out their homes and businesses. We don't have that data yet, trying to dry out and clean up the mess. KUOW reported that more than 9 million acre feet of water dumped over a course of 10 days. That's more than 3 times the volume of water in Lake Washington dumped over the course of 10 days in western Washington. Dave, what are you paying closest attention to as we wait to see the full extent of this damage?
Well, the effect on people. I mean, I've covered a few floods in my career, and there's nothing more painful than to drive up to a family and they show you where the water was, and the furniture's ruined, the walls are ruined, the books are ruined, and unless you are really well off, you're asking yourself, how do I start over again? So how is this going to be resolved? Well, I know there will obviously be an examination of what went wrong, reinforcement of the dikes, et cetera, but we know the climate's changing. We know that there's going to be more moisture in this area. People are going to determine what happens by moving. They'll vote with their feet. And in some ways, the market takes care of this. I've always said that if you're shopping for a house, we do it all wrong. We shop on a sunny day in the summer on the weekend. Yeah. No, you should shop during rush hour on the rainiest day of the year to see what it is you've bought into. And I think more and more people will take the flood maps seriously, will take the landslide maps seriously. And slowly, some areas are going to be abandoned and some areas will be repopulated.
If they're up to date, because some of those maps have not been updated in the course of decades, the Seattle Times has reported. I was really interested when it comes to reinforcing the dikes and levees and all of our flooding barriers in this story that Conrad Swanson and Lulu Ramadan reported at the Seattle Times over the weekend. And it explains why the Desimone levee in Tukwila on the Green River wasn't repaired, because it was damaged in 2020. We had flooding back then. And it comes down to what appears to be just severe dysfunction between the federal government and King County and their inability to coordinate and agree on a plan going forward for that levee. Basically, the Army Corps of Engineers had agreed to cover 80% of the costs and restore the levee to its pre-flood status, so before 2020. But the King County Flood District said, no, we want to think more long-term. Yeah. We want to do what's going to, help us avoid these increasingly worsening floods. And we want to set back the levee. We want to kind of release some pressure on the river. All of this would be much more costly than what the Corps of Engineers was in for, would have required the King County to start obtaining land in order to move the levee. And in the end, the Corps in January pulled out of the plan and kind of left King County in the lurch. And there's been a lot of finger pointing. There's been a lot of, kind of disagreement about who was at fault for why they couldn't come to an accord here. But that left this year King County just sort of saying, okay, well, we're not going to be able to break ground next year like we planned on. And here we are.
Yeah. Well, it's like, do you pay for just the Band-Aid or do you, go in for surgery? And I understand the dilemma. The permanent fix is always more expensive than the temporary fix. And who pays for it? I mean, to me, this is the reason you have a big federal government for things that it's I mean, when you're a homeowner and you lose everything, you can't pay for that. And you can't buy insurance most of the time because flood insurance is either very expensive or not available at all. And other than telling people, I'm sorry, you're going to have to move, there has to be someone who can at least guarantee you some security in the event of something like this, even if it is to say, well, we'll move you to higher ground. Because otherwise, we know it's going to happen again and again. It's not getting any better.
Yeah. Final thought here on floods. It's, much less high priority than people's homes or the businesses and in how we're going to make sure that these levees and these barriers hold in the future. But tourism, ski season, Snoqualmie Pass is going to open for skiers tomorrow. Stevens is not open yet, but Highway 2 being completely closed for months at least.
I couldn't believe those pictures. Half the highway.
It's insane, Dave.
Washed out.
I know. And it just looks like a big giant came down and carved it up like a cake or a turkey or something. So certainly Highway 2, when it comes to the route where most skiers are coming from, Western Washington, the Seattle area. I used to be much more of a skier, but I'll go a couple times a year when I can. It would take an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to Stevens from the Seattle area. Guess how long it takes now when you have to do the workaround through Wenatchee?
A lot longer.
4 hours plus, Dave. And that doesn't count, the windy road, detour through the mountains there. So this is leaving a lot of people who had passes. The Epic Pass is the pass for Vail Resorts that includes Stevens. They had insurance on their passes, but the insurance covers things like, landslides, natural disasters. Get this, the insurance does not cover transportation issues.
Come on.
Of course not.
Well, first of all, you're talking to a guy who's skied exactly once and was terrified the whole time. And
we have the perfect guest here then. Yes. Yeah. Share your perspective on skiing.
The one time I decided to slide down a slope, it was in an inner tube and I fell into a tree hole. And so I never did it after that. But I admire people who do. I have friends who are in their 70s and still ski. I've really never understood the psychology behind spending, even in a good season when the only problem is snow, you still got to put your chains on to get up there. And then you park and you pay, I don't know, like $100-something for like 20 seconds of terror. I've never understood that. I know some people.
It's a beautiful sport. It's a thrill.
No, it's a thrill to watch.
When it's raining in the lowlands, it's snowing in the mountains, and it's the thing that people who are into winter sports hold on to throughout the winters here.
What I find best about skiing is being able to sit home, watch it on TV with a roaring fire in the fireplace, and saying, "You go."
You're an après-ski guy, but without the skiing.
That's exactly right.
All right, let's move on. I'm wishing the best for Stevens in all seriousness, and for resort towns like Leavenworth who are going to be going through it this winter as Highway 2 is going to be closed for months. But let's turn the page. Okay, bills, affordability. This has been a hot button lately. Democrats can't stop talking about it, at least. The New York Times did a breakdown of how the term took over campaign messaging for Democrats running for governor of Virginia, governor of New Jersey, Zoran Mondani in New York. And of course, they didn't talk about this, but I would add Katie Wilson in Seattle. There is this sense that the left has finally landed on a way to talk about the economy without alienating people or denying their experience, the way that the Biden administration was criticized for. But there's this other conversation that is widened outside of the world of political scientists and talking heads, and that is about what does it mean to live a middle-class lifestyle in America? And that is related to affordability. And basically, Dave, it's like this debate that took over from an essay that went viral by a guy named Michael Green. He's an investor, strategist, Wall Street type. And he wrote that he believes the poverty line in America should be moved to $140,000 a year for a family of four. It's currently about $31,000 a year. And he got initially just sort of buried by economists who said that he had messed up with the data he was using. But he stood by the core argument, which is that the price of participation in a middle-class lifestyle in America for a family of four is about $140,000 when you account for all these inputs, education, housing, et cetera. What are your thoughts about that?
Ultimately, what we're discussing here is what level of economic pain gets voters to change who they vote for. That's what I think it's about. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I ran for office in 2004, we were doorbelling through.
How did that go, by the way?
I lost.
Oh, no.
52-47.
Sorry. That's only something that a long-time scamp like me in your life can say.
That's right. But learned quite a bit, and it really changed the way I covered politics after that, I think. But we were doorbelling in a neighborhood in Bellevue, and I remember you'd walk in with your partners, and I would walk with my sometimes with a campaign official or just a volunteer. And I remember on one of the walks, the person walking with me said, "Look at these houses. These are beautiful houses. These people could afford to pay more taxes. That's the way we should raise money for the government. Tax them more." And I said, "Yeah, that's a really nice house, but it comes with a really high tax bill. It comes with a lot of maintenance. These people probably have a family of 3 or 4, and children are expensive. And I can guarantee you that even if they're making over $150,000 a year, they feel strapped because they're saving for college. Sometimes they believe in sending them to a private school, clothing, food, etc. And if you come out or if you have me say, the first thing I'm going to do in office is tax you, we're going to lose because they feel strapped." And I think we're seeing the same thing now. It's not enough to. I don't think. First of all, hard fact: people who live below the poverty level do not vote. The percentage of them who vote is like 40%. People making over 100,000, the percentage is 80 and 90%. And the reality of politics, the thing I learned is that if you don't vote, you are not going to see any government programs to help you out because politicians do what gets them elected. So number one, to change the problem of poverty, every person making below the poverty level needs to get out and vote. No excuses. Sorry. And the other thing is, make sure that government officials are nice to you when you try to get something done. Whether it's
what does that mean?
It means if you're applying for a permit to build a home, if you're applying for a permit to do something with your land, don't take the attitude that we're going to make this as hard as possible for you because we think you're hurting the environment or whatever it is. No, if it's your land, you should be able to do something with it. Then people will build more housing.
You're kind of a deregulation guy then.
Well, some regulations, I have a feeling, were put there not to regulate, but to stop, but to block things, right? And it's the combination of everything being a hassle plus the cost of maintenance and stuff that makes people feel strapped, even though there may be a high number in the salary column.
Yeah, I think that there's something there because, as you say, that salaries, when you look at the data, have increased by, this is data from the American Enterprise Institute, a very conservative think tank. Real salaries have increased 46% since 1973 for men, 121% for women, and that accounts for inflation, all kinds of things. We are wealthier as a country today than we've ever been before, but we're wealthy in things. You know, we have real access to consumer goods. We have cheap TVs at Costco. We have all kinds of items we can order online, although, you know, Trump has tightened some of those Shein loopholes and things like that. But when it comes to these items that actually give you a sense of being in the middle class, that's where our wages have not kept pace, right? So housing, healthcare, education.
Daycare is a big thing.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, they're working a job and all it does is pay for the daycare. So are you really ahead or not? In some ways you are, because it's not fair to be the only person at home with the kid all day, right? Or 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids. So I think that's a big deal. And I think somebody who can figure out a way to provide that at an affordable price is going to draw people to the polls. I don't know how I know how my parents did it. Mom stayed home, and we were out in the suburbs, and it was safe, and we felt fine. Today, that's just not the way people want to live. Both partners want to work typically, and that means daycare, and it's expected. And so,
well, and it's the two-income trap thing
Yeah.
that Elizabeth Warren has talked about, which is as these inputs, the college tuition, housing get more expensive, you need that second income, and then you need to pay even more for childcare. So it's like it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah. But I mean, having as the father of two daughters, I know both of them. They don't want to stay at home.
Yeah.
They want to work. They want to be out there doing something that they find satisfying.
Yeah. We got to turn the page really quick because we have some important new music hitting our airwaves right now.
Yes, you may fall apart, but it just takes some glue. She can go on long trips and she won't have to pee. And the
Wait for
cops
it. I'm
say
waiting
she's
for the
fake,
hook.
but she looks like a woman to me.
Okay. So this is a parody song by the one, the only Dave Ross, my guest here today for Front Page. Dave, 47 years on the airwaves at KIRO.
47 years.
47, and this last year, it's almost a year to the day. It's only a couple days off from your last broadcast over at KIRO. Now that you're not one of our, most hated competitors here on KUOW, we can welcome you with open arms over to NPR.
I'm sure I terrified you.
You're just absolutely terrified. Good thing we were in different time slots.
Yeah.
But you've been digitizing your archives. Why have you been doing that, and what have you discovered as you've been digitizing these parody
I discovered
songs?
that magnetic tape is an imperfect medium, and it deteriorates over time. And some of the masters, alas, are lost forever. So it was time to, and it's also very difficult to find reel-to-reel tape recorders anymore. So I finally borrowed one from a friend, and that's the only way to preserve these timeless works of audio art.
Well, first of all, why the parody song? How did you get into them?
Well, when I was doing the first iteration of my talk show was not political talk. It was basically entertainment. I was doing a variety show on the air. So we did skits. I would go out and, just drive an expensive car for the heck of it. And I would usually write a song each week to parody or call attention to some current event. And the song that was just excerpted was when this guy was caught with a mannequin on the floating bridge, trying to
on
skip
I-90.
the toll, or on I-90. Well, whichever one. Trying to skip the toll lanes. I thought that was just incredible. And so I wrote this as an explanation that really the man was in love, and it was genuine. And the only problem was my range is not the same as Billy Joel's, so I had to stretch on a couple of those
beg
harmonies.
to differ on that. I thought it sounded excellent. But I know you also brought a seasonal offering, right?
Yes. We used to do live shows at Town Hall from time to time, a Christmas show with Felix Bennell. We did a Christmas play. And sometimes as the warm-up, I would do a song. And this one was Winter Wonderland, right? Yeah.
Sleigh bells ring, they're so boring. Festive lights, you're ignoring. All the holiday trees that you'll never see, 'cause you're looking at the iPhone in your hand. Back at home, children laughing as the gifts they're unwrapping. But they didn't get yours. You walked right past the stores, looking at the iPhone.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. You had a multi-talented crew. I know Ursula Reutin is a great singer as well over there. Those variety shows were fun.
Yeah, they were. Well, we also did a Thanksgiving show where Pam Sowers, who was my producer at the time, created sort of a Garrison Keillor thing. We had the Iron Lake Grange, and she had a whole neighborhood of people who would show up and tell stories and things like that.
I never did anything like that when I was your producer. I was just trying to make sure I hit my alarm snooze button one more time at 5:15 in the morning or whatever.
I know. Well, things changed over the years. I mean, when we started competing with Rush Limbaugh, we got. When I first started doing talk show, we were not allowed to give opinions. Right? It was strictly interviews with authors. We didn't even take phone calls. And then it was around 1992. They said, we're getting killed in the ratings here. Start giving opinions. And so we did, and eventually that was one of my proudest moments when we beat Rush in the ratings. I was going through my old mail file, and there was a note from Pat Cashman who said, Dave, congratulations on beating Rush. That's one of my most prized possessions.
Legend, Pat Cashman. How do you think broadcasting and specifically doing a news show changed over the last now 48 years since you started?
It's changed in every way. Once upon a time, when I first got into radio, radio had the station I worked at in Atlanta, WSB, had ratings to rival TV stations because we were an all news station, and we had a huge staff. We were everywhere. So when something happened, we'd just go to it live, and that was my job, to go down to the police. My first job was working the homicide beat with the cops. So anytime they found a body, I'd be out there and we'd do it live. We had a helicopter doing live traffic, so it was huge. You became famous, within a week of getting the job there, because there's where else were you going to go for breaking news, right? No internet, correct? Ted Turner was a regular guest as the head of the Atlanta Braves, and then he started this little channel called CNN. And
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, before then, the idea of continuous news was just something that we were doing only on the radio, and then only in the morning. We'd switch to music at noon. Today, everybody's a broadcaster, and that's great. It's democratized the whole news business, but we know what the downside is. That in our job, if you made up something, you're fired, right? And people don't realize that. If you're a professional journalist and you make up something for the sake of selling your broadcast or newspaper, you are fired.
There are consequences.
Yeah, that's right. And today you can share a false story on Facebook or anything else, and there's no consequence. I mean, people might comment, say, "Boy, you're an idiot," but you don't get fired. You still get access to the internet. And so my only request has been, I say this every time I give a speech, is if you're online, just be responsible. Pretend you're an editor. Pretend you were sharing this with someone you really cared for and did not want to deceive. And at least check it out, especially with AI now, which is going to be helping people fabricate all sorts of wild things. Check something before you pass it on. That's all. And that would do a lot to improve the environment. As for, it certainly made journalism jobs more insecure because it has definitely split the audience.
I was going to say the journalism jobs are going away, but everybody needs to have a level of understanding in order to know what they're getting online. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you
media savvy.
Yeah. If you still want to be informed, you now have a role in that process, and it is vet things. That's all. Do what you would have expected us to do as professional journalists. I mean, the thing about my job, one of the reasons that you can't do it much past my age, I think, is that when you're responsible for broadcasting actual news to people, you don't want to make a mistake. So my wife is in the studio listening.
Patty's
she can witness
here, yeah.
this. I was pretty much inaccessible even when working from home because, I'd go on the air, but then I'd go home. What's the first thing I do? Open up the computer and read news because I needed to be familiar with all the stories so I could tell if something smelled bad that suddenly comes across the wire in real time, right? And you spent a lot of time doing that. Plus, I was writing a daily commentary. And heck, if you're giving an opinion, you don't want to get a call from somebody, and especially for a long time I was doing for CBS Radio, right? You don't want to get a call from somebody saying, well, how come you didn't realize this? I mean, that was dumb. Did you not look up this statistic? So you spend as much time as you can making sure you don't embarrass yourself. And that standard is it goes away when all you rely on is social media and AI, because AI doesn't know.
When you made the decision to go behind the desk to take a hosting job, how much did you miss being in the field reporting? Because I got a chance to see you up close when we went to the 2008 New Hampshire primary
right.
and the Iowa caucuses.
We ran through the snow, didn't we?
We really did. I was never so cold, and I also never felt just so outpaced than seeing you in real time. Dave on the street was like, gosh, you had that microphone and you were just like going. You were way ahead of me. I mean, we got a chance to be there in the room in a middle school or high school in Iowa when, Barack Obama was leading this like surprise win in Iowa.
Yeah.
We went to his celebration, the party. After that, we went to New Hampshire when Hillary was extremely uncomfortable and that campaign was looking really stressed out. I ran into then Senator Obama in a middle school hallway when he was coming out of the restroom.
I remember that. You were just dazzled.
I was so dazzled. And I, of course, being such a rookie, I didn't like get him on the microphone at all. I just was like, hi, Senator. But did you miss that? Did you miss being in the field once you took a reporting or a hosting job?
Well, my feeling was that being in the studio makes you dumber. So I try to get out as much as possible. And KIRO was very good about sending me on trips and letting me take a few risks, like 10 days in Baghdad.
You went to Iraq. You went to Iran. Right. You traveled a lot.
Yes, and that's where I got most of my education on international stories and started developing a real interest in that. But that's part of where social media could be great, is if people who are in these areas where the news is happening, like there's no better way to learn about Ukraine than to read some blogger who's living in Ukraine, right? So everybody can be on the front lines now.
Yeah. Gaza, too. I mean, a lot of that was happening in real time on social, And there was a lot of misinformation, but a lot of also first-person accounts.
Right. And the one thing you realize when you're in these places, one of the most exciting trips besides Baghdad was being in Europe in 1989 when the wall came down. So I was in Berlin, and the same thing was happening in Czechoslovakia at the time. And you realize that all these things, these big world events, are happening as people are going about their lives. So you go into a place and you're there to cover a demonstration, but you're also seeing kids going to school, people shopping, life going on. And the thing about Ukraine that is that's so worrisome to me is when you have a guy like Putin who doesn't care and is just hurling missiles at apartment buildings. Really, you tolerate that? I don't see how even in a dictatorship like that, a leader like that survives. I would think there would have been just a huge uprising, because when that's allowed, nobody anywhere in the world is secure. Now that we have missiles and drones that can go anywhere, you're going to allow that to happen? No leader should be allowed to do that.
But I don't think people there are getting. I mean, bring this back around to the free press. Like, I don't think people there are getting that information, without a heavy government filter, and that's what alarms me, of course, about increasing conversation. I don't know if you saw the 60 Minutes story that the story about CCOT was spiked by Barry Weiss, and there's conversations about the role of the Ellisons, Paramount, Skydance, who own CBS now. I mean, the access to information that doesn't have a heavy government thumb on it, right, is really the difference.
You can spike information all you like, but the truth comes out eventually. And people are going to, when the next election comes, people are either feeling better off or they're not. They're either feeling more secure or they're not. I think the idea that in America, mass people could come to your door and take your child away, really? You're going to tolerate that? You're going to sit still for that? I don't think so. Not for long, anyway. And that's our job, is to warn people that what's real and what's not. And there are some things that are real that are going on now that I don't think people will tolerate. That's why we have elections. That's why I say I don't care whether you're rich or poor. Get out there and vote for your own interests. Vote for the choice that makes you feel more secure. If you stay away, then you've ceded all the power that you have. That's the power you have, is that vote. Anything else, well, unless you're a billionaire, then you have power.
I'm not.
But most of us are not.
Yeah. 47 years on the air and a year of retirement. Mm-hmm. What have you learned in this last year? What have you
I've learned how to read
exploring?
Fiction books. I've read 22 books in the last year. I've joined 2 book clubs. I've joined a walking group. I signed up with a fitness coach so I can still climb stairs, at least for a few more
Are
years.
you doing any strength training?
I'm doing strength training.
Nice. That's
Absolutely.
important. Resistance training.
Yeah,
Good.
especially because I got to lift all these boxes for our downsizing move. But it's been I've tried to decompress and be more present to the family and the grandkids. But as you can tell, I'm still reading news.
Yeah, I can tell you're really retired.
Not quite as intensely as before. I'm not running into burning buildings, but no, I am happy to be retired. And
I bet you don't miss that alarm clock.
I do not miss the alarm clock. As a matter of fact, when you invited me to do this, it all kicked in again, and I'm saying, okay, I got to read up on this. I got to read up on this. So this is a one-off, Libby.
Oh no, I was going to ask you back, but no. Apparently, it's done. That's over. I have ruined the idea of any more radio for you after just a year away, right? With this experience?
I enjoy listening to you on my car radio in the afternoons. But this is fun. I have, especially to have a former employee say that I wasn't nasty to her.
Nope. I don't remember a single time.
Good.
In fact, I remember a couple times when you had my back when I was being a very inexperienced dummy as a 21, 22-year-old producer, and I will always be grateful.
I have no
that.
memory of that. That's what happens with age.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. Dave Ross, you are the reason I'm in radio. You are the person I listened to when I would be faking like I was sick in high school, and I would tune into the radio. I'm not joking. I was that person. And
I'm sorry to have contributed to juvenile delinquency.
You really did. And then I produced for you for many years, and you truly are, I think, the greatest who has ever done it. And I am so happy to have you in the studio. Thank you so much for doing Front Page with me today.
That's very kind of you to say. You were a wonderful producer. I thought it ironic that I ran for office, but you're the one who went to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I made it.
But you made it. You did. You've done a great job here.
Dave, thank you so much.
You bet.